We're going to talk about the Valentine's Day episode of Smackdown, February the 14th. It wasn't good, if we're being honest. It's never good anymore. These shows are they're dragging along, pushing one thing or another. But at least we did finally get some kind of forward momentum on the Jade Cargill thing. And that was kind of lackluster, but we'll talk about that. We got 3 news and notes to discuss. One was the internet being mad at Triple H. I'm not going to do a whole dedicated video to that because he showed up to the Senate hearing for Linda McMahon. Also, Michelle McCool going into the WWE Hall of Fame, and Demolition getting a Legends deal, which some people believe is going to be a precursor to a Hall of Fame induction. So we're going to talk about those 3 things. We're going to start with Linda McMahon. So Linda McMahon has been nominated to be the Secretary of Education here in the United States of America, and that will put her over the Department of Education. So there's been a couple of different narratives that have spun out of this. One of them is that she's an evil racist because she wants to block states from teaching African American history. She thinks that states or companies should be able to deny people education based off race. And then there's the attacks on Triple H because he's present during this thing and is being supportive. And then a lot of it is the Ring Boy scandal stuff, so I really don't want to get into that. But let's talk about this. Because Linda McMahon has been out of the business for, 20 years, thereabouts. I don't know when she left the business. It was a long, long time ago when she entered on politics. This was a long time ago. So she hasn't really been involved in the business of pro wrestling in a long time. Now, the Ring Boy scandal is a legitimate concern, considering this involves Linda McMahon and children, but she's not going to work with children in the Department of Education. It does show that she has poor judgment, but the whole Ring Boy scandal is a wishy-washy thing anyway, because it's impossible to know what people know and what they're assuming and what you're assuming people know, and then what evidence actually exists, because as we learn more about these cases, we learn, more about what was going on. We've only heard stories being bandied back and forth. We haven't heard anything that can be considered hard evidence other than gossip here and there. But even if you put that to the side, people are upset because Triple H is supporting his mother-in-law. Why wouldn't he, his wife, his brother-in-law, Shane McMahon, and his wife was also there. Everybody but Vince and the kids showed up. And this is the kind of event that you want to have your family at, because she's about to get grilled by Congress for 4 hours. 2 on Thursday, and I think 2 hours again on Friday. And this is going to be a very important job for her. Are we going to assume that she's going to get it because I believe Trump has the numbers in order to just get her in there? And just to discuss the Department of Education for a second, because I am one of these people that have been asking for the complete and total destruction of the Department of Education. It needs to go away. All right. When you look at what the Department of Education was created to do, it doesn't actually do it. There's a literacy crisis in the United States. It's a huge problem. Of 4th graders that can read at or reading below grade level. So if you're in the 4th grade and you can't read at 4th grade level, if you look at all 50 states, only 2 of them have less than 30%. And that is Florida and Wyoming. And those are 29%. I mean, you have some outlandish stuff here. You've got states like Alaska and Alabama and New Mexico. My God, it's 52% of children in the 4th grade can't read at 4th grade level in New Mexico. And I'm supposed to care that this thing exists. What does it do? What does it do? If you live in a state, like I live in Michigan, 42% of our fourth graders in Michigan can't read at grade level. This is literally what the Department of Education was created to do, was to make sure kids can at least read and count. So if I know they can't read, they damn sure can't count. Because math is hard for pretty much all children, right? Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of individual things like DEI and children's sports and all that kind of stuff, because I don't think that's all that important. But I will say this. One of the questions Linda was asked was about African American studies, right? And this white guy was like, are you going to, follow Donald Trump's executive order to eliminate the teaching of African American studies in local schools? And her response was that she wants to see the curriculum, and then she wants to review the executive order to see if those two things are, incongruent. And the guy was like, well, they've been teaching this African American history for decades, and now you just want to get rid of it? And it's like this pompous bullshit that this guy is standing on here. And I'm just saying, like, look, let's not get confused. There's no details here. When he just says African American studies or African American history, he's not talking about one subject or a particular subject. It is routinely whatever mishmash of ahistorical garbage they decide to shove into black history, like the 1619 Project, which is literally bunk. If you actually learned real history, you know that the people who came over here in 1619 weren't even slaves. But that's African American history. Like this kind of stuff. Or about, when they talk about what happened in Florida, where you can't teach that, or they were teaching that slaves learn skills. It's like, they did learn skills. They did. It was kind of in the later part of slavery, because in the earlier part, there was not much in terms of specialized skills and training for slaves. But later, they did. When they started hiring slaves out, they taught them how to be carpenters or blacksmiths. And these are skills that when they became free, they was able to use them to take care of themselves and their families. That was one of the big issues when slaves were released. And hey, go make your own way in the world. They had no skills. They had only picked cotton. So many of them turned around and went back to the plantations because the only thing they knew how to do was pick cotton or pick fruit or whatever. That's the only thing they've ever done. While the people who learned skills like carpentry or something else, or they were in the military or something like that, they were able to go on and trade those skills for money and take care of themselves. This is appropriate black history. All right. If you're going to talk about stuff like that, or are we going to continue with a lot of the bullshit narratives that were created and taught to us as black history? This is the issue. Like, black history could be, well, they just want you to talk about Martin Luther King. Well, I'm not a huge fan of Martin Luther King. So, I mean, can we talk about other people? I'm not saying that you have to completely erase black history. For starters, black history is American history. So you're literally teaching American history. That's what you're teaching. But you have to teach things appropriately. You just can't say the South fought the Civil War to protect slavery, because slavery was only one part of why the Civil War even occurred in the first place. A lot of it was due to economics. The South, even though it wasn't a lot of white people that owned slaves in the South, many of them had a slave, what they call a slave aristocracy, where they had an entire plantation where, their entire lifestyle was based off of being hands off and having other people work on their behalf. They used to have a saying called that a white man who worked was making a Negro of himself, right? These people were protecting their way of life in general. This is what they had created over years and years and years. And the North was a threat to that. So that is what the slave element was all about. But it was also because the South was retarding the growth of the nation, because the slave economy grew slower than the urbanized economy in the North. And in order to, for the better of the country, for the most part, you had to break up these slave plantations down south that was consuming so much land and resources. Now, there's a lot of conversations you could have about slavery that are nuanced and intelligent and requires you to read books. But most of these people don't do that. So the idea that they're going to, they're not going to teach black history, it's like, okay, what black history are we going to talk about here? Give me a subject and then tell me what in that subject do you not want people to learn? Because I think that if what has been getting banned is the DEI stuff, the idea that all whites own slaves and that white people are privileged and that black people are owed something from whites, all that kind of stuff. All these Marxist games that teachers play where they call kids to the front of the class and then say, well, take a step forward. If you face racism, take a step forward. If your father is on crack, take a step forward. All those kind of things that end up isolating students from each other. Those are the kinds of things that are being banned because it has nothing to do with actual learning of history. It's us versus them garbage. It was the same thing with the don't say gay stuff. It wasn't that people can't learn about homosexuality. For starters, they wanted this stuff to get away from children. They would say, hey, maybe for older teens or whatever, it'll be fine. But for small kids, it wasn't appropriate. And the same thing when they want to talk about banning books. It was, let's be appropriate here. There's inappropriate history being taught, things that are flat out either lies or exaggerations. And I think that her answer to that question was very nuanced. Now, I haven't seen the quote of her saying that private schools or whatever should be able to force people or refuse to bring people in based on race. I've seen that tweet floating around. I haven't seen that quote anywhere. Like, I haven't seen people, there's 2 hours or 4 hours of her talking. Nobody clipped that out and posted it. So I haven't seen it. I'm not about to sit here and watch 4 hours of Linda McMahon answer questions from the bullshit senators. But so there's that. All right, so let's move on away from there. Michelle McCool is being announced for the 2025 Hall of Fame. As usual, there is a lot of discussion about whether she deserves it, whether her tenure was long enough. Most people don't even remember how long her career was. It was a very short career. I mean, that part is true. It was short. It wasn't very long. She got a lot of heat because she was Undertaker's wife. And she's getting a lot of heat right now because she's Undertaker's wife. There's a lot of people who feel like she's stealing Victoria's spot or some other woman who deserves it more. I remember the Michelle McCool run. It was in the Divas era. She was one of the better divas, legitimately. She could, and I think she may even be young enough still to be able to wrestle today. She was athletic. She had some level of personality. She's mostly known for the Lay Cool run, with it was her and Layla L, and they were working together, and they were co-divas champion, and the whole Piggy James storyline with Mickie James and all that stuff. That's mostly what she's known for. But her run wasn't very long, if you compare it. But then again, the runs for these girls during that time weren't long anyway. Most of them weren't around 10 years, 15 years. They're around 3 or 4 years, and then that was it. Maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe a little bit less. For some people, they say that's not long enough. Okay, fair. I don't think that the Hall of Fame, they're going to have to actually bend over backwards with some of this stuff, especially when you talk about the Divas era stuff, because the matches are not long, the matches are not great, and you didn't get to see a lot of what they could do. But it's all about whether you remember them or not. And Michelle McCool, outside of Lay Cool, she didn't have a really deep bag of material for you to go back to review. She was the epitome of the divas era, but she wasn't a stereotypical diva that was out there with the big fake boobs falling all over herself. She actually knew what she was doing. She actually could wrestle. She didn't have a lot to work with in terms of opponents, but she could do some stuff. And I'm actually kind of surprised. Like, they bring her out for the Royal Rumble all the time, but they never actually like booked her in matches so that they could really show off what she could do. I'm guessing, that's just not in the cards. But I would have thought, especially as many times as she's gotten into the Royal Rumble and did very well, that a one-off match here or there, or even a short run, just to show the kids what she can do, and that would be impressive, especially since they consistently bring back Trish Stratus. But hey, it's hard for me to say that she should be in the Hall of Fame due to how short that run is and how uneventful it is, because mostly it was the Divas era, so it was nothing, so it's hard for me to co-sign it. Now, who do need to be in the Hall of Fame is Demolition. Demolition absolutely should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Apparently, they got signed to a Legends deal recently. And as they are signing to the Legends deal, this seems to be, and we're talking about Axe and Smash here. So, not Axe, Smash, and Crush, but I imagine it's Crush too, but even though Crush is dead. They definitely need to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, Demolition's run wasn't long either. They didn't have a really 10-year run or anything like that. It was a couple of years. But they were very eventful, and people remembered them. And they were there during one of the heights of the WWF. I love Demolition. I absolutely think Demolition should be in the Hall of Fame. And hopefully, we actually get that to happen. That would be great. Now, let's get into SmackDown. These 3-hour shows are really kicking them in the balls, man. They don't have enough material to last 3 hours, and it's obvious. They had Cody burn through 5 minutes saying nothing before he turned his sights to Solo. Said Solo, he doesn't believe that Spike was for him last week. Then Drew McIntyre sauntered out. He was disrespected by all the stuff Cody was saying. This meant nothing. Jacob Fatu came out there, got into Drew McIntyre's face, says he's going to win the championship. And then they kind of teased a fight between the two of them, but before Drew McIntyre backed off and left. And then Solo appears. Solo appeared. Jacob said he had to go handle some family business. Cody says, you can get the first word as long as I get the last. So at this point, Jacob Fatu was marching along backstage, beating up random guys. And then finally finds Solo sitting in the locker room by himself in a turtleneck sweater, it's appropriate turtleneck season, I think. He's actually dressed appropriately for he's wearing turtlenecks in the summer too, which is very weird. Jacob wants to know what was going on. Where did Solo go? And Solo said that he let the fam down, so he had to go take some time off. Had to go figure some things out, but now he's ready to take over again. The whole time, Tama Tonga is not taking his eyes off Solo at all. And Jacob Fatu went from, I love you, Solo, to being skeptical of Solo. Not really fully trusting what Solo is saying here. Solo then grabbed his arm, said that he loved Jacob Fatu. Interesting. The main event of this wretched show was Jacob Fatu versus Braun Strowman versus Damian Priest for an Elimination Chamber spot. Damian Priest won the match when he actually chokeslammed Braun Strowman, which did not look believable at all, considering the massive meat mountain that Braun Strowman is. They really should have picked a different finish. I knew Damian Priest was going to win this match, but him winning it with the chokeslam was pretty ridiculous, bro. It's kind of nonsensical, but it's like when Undertaker chokeslammed Mabel. It's like nobody believes that. Like nobody believes that Undertaker chokeslammed Mabel. Nobody believes that. They tried to kill one another in this match. It was a typical monster truck fight, which I actually kind of like. Damian Priest isn't quite on the same level as Strowman and Fatu, but in terms of monster truck fights. But, these guys did a really good job. I don't think it was a great match because it was a triple threat match, so I really didn't care. But I think it was successful in what it was trying to do. they made it entertaining at the very least. All the shenanigans came in near the end as Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman were trying to smash each other's heads in with chairs. Solo showed up, gave a spike to Braun Strowman. Then he spiked Tama Tonga by mistake as he was trying to spike Cody, who came out there to fight him. It was just people all over the place at this point. Tama was down. Priest was down. Solo and Jacob are having words. Cody gets up. He attacks. He's attacking Solo. They fight off. Next thing you know, Jacob Fatu is down as well. Then Braun Strowman is left in the ring with Damian Priest. He hits the chokeslam and wins. So Damian Priest gets the second to last spot in the men's Elimination Chamber. And I got to tell you, that Elimination Chamber match is not looking sexy. It's not great. As of right now, John Cena, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, CM Punk, and we can assume Seth Rollins is going to be in this match. Now, in terms of names, it's fine. You know, Punk and Cena is in it, and McIntyre is in it. But in terms of intrigue, it's not much there. Like, there is no interaction between all of these guys. They're just all going to have matches, and then they're just going to have a match. There's no thread that goes into the Elimination Chamber match for us to get excited about or anything for us to care about. I was just in the Discord earlier today discussing Elimination Chamber 2019. There was two of them, of course. There was the women's and there was the men's. For the women, it was the first ever women's tag team championship. So there was stories going into that match about which team is going to be the first number one champions or whatever. And then for the title, the WWE Championship, it was Kofi Kingston. It was Kofi Mania. So the big build-up to get all these other guys out of the match to lead to this extensive, fantastic Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan. I think it was about 5 or 10 minutes that these guys worked, just the two of them. And even though I don't remember a lot of it, they showed the video packages, and I remember the energy around Elimination Chamber at that time. And I said, man, this might be the last time there was that kind of oomph in the Elimination Chamber where something really, really mattered going in. And you thought something might actually change going into that event. And in this one, even though it's for the number one contendership, it doesn't feel like anything really matters. I mean, Punk is taking some shots at Cena, but that's pretty much it. You know, yes, he has history with Drew McIntyre, but they've fought so many times already. Yet we know that Logan Paul is annoying and he gets on everybody's nerves. I get it that Seth Rollins is going to have heat with CM Punk. He's going to have heat with McIntyre. I get all of that stuff. But there's nothing there's like, Cena's the only guy that's coming into this match with a, I must win. I have to win. And then he only cut one promo and then left. You know? Like, he's been gone for 3 weeks now or something like that. There's not a consistent push that John Cena needs to win this match. And it's really harming the Elimination Chamber that this, I guess you could say, I don't want to say it's the sports element that Triple H is, you know, moving away from, you know, being more story-based. Which some people will say, oh, he's not. He's actually more story-based than Vince ever was. No, if you actually look at how these things are brought together, Triple H is so methodical where everybody has to have a play-in match. And then you can't do multiple play-in matches on one night because, well, that would, you know, give away TV time or whatever. We got to stretch everything out. So now you got to stretch all these entrants out. And by the time you actually get to the show, it's just going to be 6 guys in a match that you just watched win matches, but there was no emotional investment into any of this stuff. Like, there's almost zero emotional investment into Damian Priest. None whatsoever. You can say the same thing about Logan Paul. You know, they're just throwing them in the match Logan Paul's just thrown in the match because he's probably going to build to what he's doing at WrestleMania. But there's no real, probably the same thing for Damian Priest. But there needs to be some kind of emotional element to this. That's why they needed to do more John Cena video packages of him either training or working out, or him cutting promos. Like after each guy gets in, Cena gives him a little pep talk saying, "I look forward to seeing you." You know, or Damian Priest is in the match now. I got to prepare for him. I look forward to seeing him. You know, all that kind of stuff to build it up and showing that Cena is under pressure. You know, that would be great. If Punk had done something like that, as everybody enters the match, he has something to say about them. You know, then as guys enter the match, they can have more opinions about other guys that are in the match and lay the emotional groundwork for how the match is going to play out so that people can be excited other than just, okay, we just want to see who's going to wrestle Cody. Because we all know that the winner is going to wrestle Cody now. So that's not even the question anymore. The question now is, are we going to give a fuck? And right now, it ain't looking like it, you know? So I don't know what more to say. Now, in terms of the women's Money in the Bank Elimination Chamber, Naomi defeated Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green, much like Lyra Valkyria, was defeated flat in the middle of the ring by a non-contender and just beaten, and that was it. So they put all this effort into building these women's championships, all these tournaments, all this stuff, and then one, they don't defend them. At least Chelsea has defended her title at least once. Lyra Valkyria has not defended her title at all, and they both lose. One-on-one matches at that, singles matches, flat in the middle of the fucking ring, to show you that these belts do not matter. So why do they exist? You don't build any storylines for them. Why do they exist? Now, they showed Trish Stratus during Chelsea Green's match, and I thought maybe it would lead to something between Chelsea and Trish. Now, maybe that might still be the case. But as of right now, no. That's not it at all. Now, when it comes to Naomi, her winning the match, I mean, it is what it is. The women's Elimination Chamber match is actually not much better than the men's. At this point, you got Bayley, Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, and Naomi. There's going to be one more spot that are going to be open for Raw, if I remember correctly. The winner of this match will be wrestling Rhea Ripley. I don't want it to be Bayley, as much as I like Auntie Pam. It just doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense for it to be Liv Morgan. So something tells me it's likely going to be Bianca. Oh, God. But they're also building up this story between Bianca and Liv. So we're not entirely writing off the idea that whoever this last participant is, it's likely going to be the one to win. Or it could just be Alexa Bliss, which would not be an entertaining match between her and Rhea Ripley. I would imagine the most interesting bout that you could have would be Bianca, but they're also doing this thing with Bianca and Naomi. Now, they nick all this after 3 or 4 months of story. We finally get some movement on the Jade Cargill story, just as everybody is writing him off, saying, oh, he just signed him to kick Tony in the balls, Tony Khan meaning. That's the only reason he signed Jade Cargill, to get her away from him. They finally moved this story forward. Now they had a video from a cell phone camera. They don't know who it came from. You see the ambulance there. And then you see Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez sauntering around backstage. And Bianca's like, ooh, I knew it was them. We knew it was them. And I'm like, you did? And you didn't kick their ass all this time? This storyline is not working out, man. It's just not working out. You knew it was them this whole time and you did nothing? It just so happens that Liv and Raquel are like the number one contenders for the tag team titles, right? It just so happens. So I'm guessing this is a red herring, and this is going to be either Naomi or Bianca, probably one of them. But it can't be Bianca because she was in the ring. So, or maybe Naomi and Bianca work together to get rid of Jade. Wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't Bianca be like, look, you just take out Jade and we'll be tag team champions. And I'll, create an alibi for you. We'll blame it on someone else, But anyway, that would be interesting. Even though I don't want Bianca as a heel, if we're being honest. But just blaming it on Liv and Raquel is kind of lame. So I'm thinking that might not be it. It just plays into the tag team championship match that's already coming up. I mean, they already had Naomi and Bianca lose to them, if I remember correctly, and now they're the number one contenders. They're the root of all evil, Liv Morgan. But if it's not Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, who could it be? It would have to be like Naomi or something, right? This thing, it took way too long to get to this point, and then it was anticlimactic. So, but there's some hope there. There's some seeds planted because the video was sent in anonymously. So there's a chance that it's somebody framing Raquel and Liv, and I hope that's the case. But I don't think I'm at the point where I don't think I could even be excited if it is Naomi. I don't think I'm gonna care. It would have to be something where they work together in order to get Jade out of the way, in order for it to, I mean, as long as this storyline has been going on, it's got to be anticlimactic. There's been little to no investigation. And then we weren't even told that Nick Aldis was leading the investigation. We were told that Bianca Belair was Inspector Gadget. She was Dick Tracy around that joint. She was going to figure it out. But that didn't happen. So, whatever. Let's just get it over with, man. This Triple H stuff is a disaster. It really is. But WWE is terrible at whodunits. Like, they like doing them so much, but they're really bad at paying off the whodunit. Like, the best payoff was, who had Stephanie kidnapped and ended up being Vince. That was a great payoff. Had his own daughter kidnapped. That's devious. That's evil. But like the who tried to murder Roman Reigns, who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin, who attacked Jade Cargill, it's all convoluted, unnecessarily convoluted. It takes too long. And then also, if you try to put the heat on the wrong person and the person doesn't get over, you end up in a really terrible position. It was the same thing with Kane, who attacked The Undertaker. It being Kane attacked The Undertaker. And usually that's really what it boils down to, is the person who's pointing the fingers, that's who it is. And I guess that's why they didn't have Bianca pointing fingers at anybody, or Naomi, is because they didn't want to be like, oh, well, it's obvious. It's just going to end up being you. Even though they planted the seed earlier that it was one of them that attacked Jade Cargill. But they really need to fix their mysteries. Your mysteries are not good. You need to build up the mysteries too, plant some seeds and come up with some suspects and all that kind of stuff. They don't even do any of that shit. Especially if you're going to just have the suspects be the most obvious choices, which are, oh yeah, these are the two big heels that we're feuding with right now. And we were feuding with them before we knew that they were involved in this, by the by. I'm sure there's some other stuff I'm missing out too, but whatever. Alright, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they're both sending in videos. Sami Zayn's talking about his neck. Kevin Owens has got tears in his throat. I don't understand what's going on. They're going to have a match at Elimination Chamber against each other, as Sami Zayn says they're going to do this, and this one won't be fun. They're going to have them have a singles match in Toronto, which I guess is big for the Canadian audience. I saw a lot of people say, well, you're rushing it because what about WrestleMania? And I say, well, Randy Orton still has got to come back. So I'm guessing this is going to be when Randy returns, is likely to give Kevin Owens his receipt, that RKO. That might be it. Which should be interesting. you know. But I have no interest really in Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens wrestling each other. I'm kind of numb to it. They have good matches, but I'm kind of numb to it at the same time. Motor City Machine Guns defeated Los Garza. Who gives a shit? Pretty Deadly are still the number one contenders for the tag team titles. The Street Profits are still trying to be serious. This tag team division is shredded wheat. What a disaster that is. Shinsuke Nakamura came out. He talked. He got wutted. Nobody understood anything except for he was waiting for a worthy challenge and nobody came. LA Knight came out there. Then The Miz came out. Miz and LA Knight spent, 5 or 6 minutes going back and forth at each other. Then they ultimately ended up having the match, which of course LA Knight won. Look, I like The Miz. Everybody knows that I'm one of the big Miz boosters on the internet. LA Knight, I'm just going to say this out loud, and I don't care if people don't like it. The Miz is much better than LA Knight on the mic. He's much better. He has more range of motion on the microphone. He can be passionate. He can be mewling. He could do a lot of different things, while LA Knight is kind of stuck in the overly cocky, confident mode. And if Miz wanted to destroy him on the mic, he could have. But instead, he kind of fed things for LA Knight to play with, which is, what you do when you have a cocky, baby face. And I kind of consider LA Knight to be a little bit like Miz with more muscle, So it's basically like the same character, Except Miz is much better as a heel. And because he has the physique fits for him being a heel. I wonder what Miz is going to be up to these days, because he's not used a lot, but he's been around forever and he gets reactions and people actually care about him. He's one of the few people who comes out of the chute, gets the reaction, and knows how to get one as he's going along. But he's been around so long that he's done everything. So you're in a position where you're not sure what he can do. They teased a tag team with him and Carmelo Hayes, Mello Don't Miz, which was hilarious. But do we really want them to be a tag team? I don't think so. The Miz may be working with Carmelo, being like his voice or something like that. Could work. If you want to use Miz as Carmelo Hayes' agent or something like that, kind of like a manager role, that would be something new that Miz hasn't done before. But I think Miz as an in-ring worker and character that matters on the show, those days are done. Like, those days are gone. Miz is never going to work his way back to being a United States champion or Intercontinental champion or anything like that. He's a jabroni, or he will be a jabroni. He's going to be a jobber to the stars. So, but he has talent and he's over. So you probably need to use that and put him in a Bobby Heenan-like role. I think that works. I wouldn't pick Carmelo because he's too small and Miz is bigger than he is. But maybe somebody else. It would be great if The Miz was their manager. Or if it was a tag team or something. It could work. But I think The Miz in the ring, I think those days are limited. Those days are very limited. Because there's nothing more for him to do. So it's hard to tell. But LA Knight, he did the face-off with Nakamura the entire time. I don't think anybody cares, though. Like, these guys have wrestled many times before. Nakamura disappeared for weeks. Then came back and he's still in a feud with LA Knight. What the fuck? What's that about? What did he leave? He left and was gone for months. And then he finally comes back and he's still in the feud with the same guy he was feuding with before. What is that? What's that story? That makes no sense. Speaking of Carmelo Hayes, he had a match with R-Truth. Now, this one was actually pretty funny, this gimmick here. So R-Truth caught Carmelo Hayes in the barbershop. Carmelo Hayes calls himself him, right? Urban Dictionary, that shit, if you don't understand it. But R-Truth, because his character is brain fogged, he's saying he doesn't understand why he's calling himself him. He thinks him is Akira Tozawa. So like, You're not him, dog. That's Tozawa. Your mama called you Carmelo Hayes. Which is pretty good. Like, and that annoyed Carmelo, so they want to have a match. It wasn't long. It wasn't, very detailed. It was just a solid win for Carmelo. And you know what? They're booking him backwards. Now they want to give Carmelo these quick and easy matches that he can win after all the fucking losses that he's taken. Now they want to give him quick and easy wins. These people are ridiculous, man. These truly ridiculous people. Like, why did you waste all this guy's time and energy? Why do that? Why waste all those bumps? Why waste all those matches? My God. Next, Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss, they had words. This led to Static and Wyatt Six stuff being played, and I was like, oh no. She's really going to drag this stable from the gutter to the television all over again. Oh my God. They reminisce about their match that they had at WrestleMania. I don't know. This had to be like 10 years ago at this point, right? What was this? Alexa and Nia. Man, that was a long time ago. That was a real long time ago. They actually, the point of that match was pretty funny too, because everybody was so upset and offended that Alexa Bliss was making fat jokes about Nia Jax. Even though that was the entire point of the story, was for Nia Jax to, confront the bully and overcome it. Which was weird because the bully is literally 5'1", maybe. And Nia Jax is a damn near 6 foot, 300-pound behemoth. But they were kind of teasing that they were going to have another match at WrestleMania, which of course is not going to happen. And this leads to Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax for the women's title. Nia Jax, who's gotten 100 championship matches, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's getting the super push of her career. This is the biggest push that Nia Jax has ever gotten. And it's as she's reaching or approaching or just crossed 40 years old, which is very weird. This match was also long. Tiffany Stratton got crushed 1,000 times. I mean, how many Samoan drops did she take? Like, so many. She took one off the second rope. She actually put her arm out on that one on the second rope. She put her arm out to catch her fall. She could have easily broke that arm. Hopefully somebody told her not to do that again. Don't do that, please. You're going to break your arm, honey. Anyway, the match ends when Candice LeRae jumps Tiffany Stratton and starts attacking her. Nia Jax helped. They flattened Tiffany. They're going to beat her up. Then Trish Stratus gets in the ring, starts fighting Candice LeRae and fighting Nia Jax, and then she gets crushed by Nia Jax. Nia Jax beats up Tiffany Stratton, crushes her too, and then leaves them both for dead, and just leaves them laying there. Charlotte saunters out there. She mocks Tiffany for being down on the ground, then says that she chooses Tiffany to be her opponent at WrestleMania. And it was not dramatic at all. There was no reason given. They had not even had words tonight. It was just, I choose you, Tiffany. Why? What made her cross the Rubicon to be the opponent for Charlotte Flair? I don't know. Again, there's a lot of dropped balls in this. Like, if you could have let's just do a little bit of fantasy booking while I got time. Charlotte was watching this match, right? Why not have Tiffany do a couple of Charlotte moves in the match? And then Charlotte calls it out. Like, I see you doing my stuff. What are you doing? You're doing my moonsault. You're doing this thing and that thing. You're trying to be like me. And then Tiffany's like, no, I do it better than you anyway. And then that is what gets under Charlotte's skin, is that she's being replaced. Like, this young girl is doing a lot of the same stuff she can do. And maybe have Tiffany bring that up. Maybe you're feeling insecure about your spot. Maybe you think that you're old now. Just go there. How old is Charlotte? 36, 38 or something like that? And Tiffany's 25. Just go there and say, like, maybe you feel like you're getting old. And even if you want to keep Tiffany as a babyface, which is clearly what they want to do, You could even play the role of Tiffany just saying, "Hey, I was inspired by you. You know, like, why are you offended? You should be proud. I was inspired by you. I was yada yada yada." Put her over, put Charlotte over, and Charlotte can just get offended by it and upset. Like, you can't replace me. Who do you think you are? Much like Ric Flair when he wrestled Shawn Michaels. You know, you're just a Charlotte Flair wannabe. Much how Rick called Shawn a Ric Flair wannabe. All you had to do was parallel that story. Now, they still have so much time to go that route, and I hope they do. But this anticlimactic, "I choose you, Tiffany," with no real reason behind it. It's not like anything was said on NXT or Raw that changed her mind. It was just, "I choose you, Tiffany," because you're laying down on the ground now. That's ridiculous. It's lacking in drama. It's lacking in drama. Okay, I don't know. They gotta build up some drama, man. This is the match that I wanted, though. I wanted Tiffany versus Charlotte for that reason. I think this is, for the women's division, your Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair match. The only issue that I have here is that we haven't really kind of punched that ticket yet. We have to build up the emotional investment, and that'll come, I guess. So I'm interested in that match. I like it. Tiffany is about to get a big rub, though, as she's going to be teaming with Trish Stratus to wrestle Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. This comes out with Trish Stratus saving Tiffany Stratton after the match, and she got beat up by Nia Jax. So she goes backstage and she suggests that she go to Toronto and be Tiffany's partner against Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. And Tiffany's super, super excited. I'm a little too excited, if you ask me. But this is a good rub for Tiffany. Look, I know that they kind of wasted Trish 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Or was it a year and some change? But I think it was 2 years ago, where they had her teaming with Zoe Stark. You know, like that wasn't necessary. But this will work. You know, because they're similar enough. You know, Tiffany Stratton was into fitness and gymnastics and all that kind of stuff before she got into wrestling. Was a fan for the most part. Same as Trish. You know, maybe I think Trish might even been a bigger fan than Tiffany was. In any event, they come from the same mold, and so the tag team works. I don't like more premier position Nia Jax, where now she gets another pay-per-view match that she doesn't deserve. And there has to be other big girls somewhere. I mean, Piper Niven, for God's sake, she's a big girl too. Come on. We got to do something with other people. I know Nia Jax, has a unique position because she is the only female of her size. But you have to invest or even look or try to move some other people in these positions, and not just, have Nia Jax be Godzilla all the time. There's only so many times we can watch this woman get powerbombed from the second rope or pinned in the middle of the ring, and she still has aura. It just doesn't work. It's big show level stuff at this point. We've seen her get bounced around and thrown around by pretty much everybody. Enough's enough. Enough's enough. And Candice LeRae, get her out of here. So that's it for SmackDown. I got to tell you, the World Championship is still ice cold. It's still Cody and Solo. What the fuck? Why? Why is it Cody and Solo? Why is Nia Jax still around? Why is the Motor City Machine Gun still around? Why is DIY still around? Why is any of this stuff happening? Why is nothing hot on this show? That's the problem. This show went from having the hottest storyline in wrestling that made you want to watch it to not having anything hot on the show in the entire 3 hours. Even the guys who are over are not hot. like Drew McIntyre and Cody and Jacob Fatu. Like, these guys are over. The crowd likes them. They interact with them and all that. But their angles are not hot. They're not in something that you are emotionally invested in, you know? And it permeates through the rest of the show. The entire show is like this. There's storylines, but these storylines are not hot. There are rematches. There's, matches, feuds that have been going on forever. And they lead nowhere. These things never seem to end. So, whatever. They're teasing, I guess, Solo and Jacob Fatu, which I did not expect. But I guess Jacob has to wrestle somebody. So having another Bloodline Civil War kind of match, it's a solid enough WrestleMania win for Jacob Fatu, since it's going to be his first WrestleMania. It's okay on that level. And, at least he's not going to be put in a position to lose. I'll be okay with if Jacob and Solo have to fight at WrestleMania. That would be fun. At least they have a long-running story that would make it more interesting and have some level of emotional investment. As Jacob owes Solo for bringing him into WWE and giving him this opportunity. The unfortunate thing, and I think the biggest problem with that, is that this turns Jacob babyface, and you don't want that. You don't want Jacob and Solo to fight because it turns Jacob babyface. You don't want that. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.